Hello and welcome to the Newsroom with Sana. Today we're going to be taking a look at three important stories. The first is in reference to, of course, the very important situation between Pakistan and Afghanistan. We've seen a joint statement coming in as well out of the talks that were held in Istanbul, and with about 4 days of talks and a continued extension, there seems to be still no real breakthrough, but there is a possibility of a continuation of these dialogues and hope for some sort of sanity to prevail, with the next round to be held in Istanbul again on the 6th of November. And for now, both sides have agreed to continue with the ceasefire and to put in place a mechanism that takes a look at these terrorist activities. But whether or not we will get the guarantees that are needed in written from the Afghan Taliban regime for their soil not to be used against Pakistan is a matter that still needs to be discussed. At the same time, it is important for the international community to note that this is not just something that Pakistan is putting on the table, but is based also on a United Nations report that acknowledges the existence of these terrorist organizations, the safe havens that are being provided, and the kind of ties that are then linked with the Afghan Taliban regime and their facilitation to the matter. And we also know that there is another report that the Special Rapporteur of the UN has also given to the General Assembly, stating that bringing in or consolidating the Afghan Taliban regime's governance in the region is going to further undermine the reassurances that have still not been fulfilled, particularly with regards to inclusivity and the ways in which women's rights needed to be upheld. So that is going to be our focus in the first segment. Our second one is going to take a look at the planned meeting between the U.S. president and the Russian leader, which has been cancelled. And in a report by the Financial Times, we have seen that this is something that is being pointed towards the Kremlin, saying that there wasn't a lot of interest, or the kind of demands that have been put on the table from the Russian side make it difficult for this particular engagement to continue. We've seen a lot of rhetoric coming in from both the sides that earlier in a phone call acknowledged each other and the possibility of this meeting in Budapest. However, a number of other circumstances have been cited as the reason for the cancellation of this planned meeting, and then of course the ways in which the US is also putting forward and expressing its dissatisfaction over Russia's current stance. So we're going to take a look at how that would develop into the larger relation between the United States and Russia. And in our last story, we're going to be taking a look at how Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the younger brother of King Charles III, is being taken. The title has been taken away based on his ties with the ways in which he has been engaging with Epstein, who's been accused of sexual predatory. And this is, of course, something which has been investigated into, and how exactly this is going to unfold and the impact that's going to create on the credibility of the royalties and the way it's going to be acknowledged across the world remains to be seen. So we're now going to be taking a look at our first story that, of course, is going to be give in focused look at what exactly is currently going on between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and the way that the international community is also cognizant of the situation, what it is that they're doing about it. For this, we have been joined in the newsroom by Brigadier Retired Mr. Syed Ghazanfar Ali, who's a defense analyst, and also Dr. Maria Sultan, who's a political analyst. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ma'am, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. Dr. Maria, I'm going to start with you in terms of how you take a look at the current situation, particularly with reference to how we have seen that 4 rounds of talks have still not resulted in a breakthrough. Of course, there's a hope of something happening, but there is a lot of push coming in to support Pakistan's stance that we've been putting forward for quite some time now, that these terrorist havens exist, that these terror networks are operating against Pakistan, and these elements are something that need to be acknowledged and eliminated by the Afghan Taliban regime. However, of course, there's no real written guarantee coming in from the Afghan side. So how do you see the international community's response, even after the UN report that solidifies Pakistan's claim?
Well, first and foremost, we have to look at the situation on ground. The situation on ground is this, that it is the first time that the Taliban regime and members of its regime are being held accountable for the promises which they had made during the Doha process, that Afghanistan's territory would not be used for terrorism, neither will it facilitate terrorism. Unfortunately, as does the UN report suggest, and as well as Pakistan's documented evidence, which has been provided with the Taliban regime at multiple levels and at multiple times, there is irrefutable proof that the Afghan territory has been used for terrorism and for conducting acts of terrorism against Pakistan. Unfortunately, Pakistan has suffered greatly from different waves of terrorism since 2021 till 2025, where there has been almost 500% increase in acts of terrorism inside Pakistan. And this, of course, led to Pakistan taking a very strong, stance towards it. And we carried out certain military counter responses towards the incursions which were made on the Pakistani border, under which we believe that there was a nexus between, criminality, terror elements, and others, which would have used these border exchange flyers and others to smuggle in terrorists. Just yesterday alone, we have seen the death of Mr. Kari, who is considered to be one of the key leaders for the TTP and for some of the terror organizations which have been operating inside Pakistan. So this means that what we have achieved is significant. It is significant because this is for the first time there was a conversation between Pakistan and Afghanistan on a single point. And the single point was to come against terrorism in a very strong way and to also communicate to the Afghan government, the regime, whatever you call them, that they have to take serious action. And if they don't take serious action, they will be held accountable. So in terms of their interlocutors, whether it was Qatar, whether it was Turkey, whether it was Saudi Arabia, or for that matter, the United States, or for that matter, Pakistan, which had facilitated the Qatar process, tremendously. We all very clearly communicated to the Taliban regime. And of course, they have agreed to a joint communique, which alone suggests that they're recognizing that one, the terrorism existed, and second, the terrorism actually existed from Afghanistan, which was impacting on Pakistan and Pakistan's security. Second, now we're asking them to come up with some tangible, measurable, verifiable steps which will allow us to believe that they have dismantled those terror networks. They're not going to facilitate for these terror organizations to continue to operate in Afghanistan and continue to operate against Pakistan. So we are hopeful, and we believe that by 6th of November, once the talks resume, there will be concrete action which will be taken by Kabul on this matter and very clearly to stabilize the Pakistan-Afghanistan situation.
Absolutely. Brigadier Ghazanfar, I also want your take in terms of what it is that is currently going on. And Dr. Maya, stay with us and I'll come back to you. But Brigadier Ghazanfar, the important aspect to note, of course, here is what next and what is it that Pakistan can do in this regard. We, of course, know there's another discussion planned on the 6th of November. But how will that change what hasn't been achieved so far in the number of talks that we have already seen happen in the mediation by countries like Turkey and Qatar? What else can push this forward? Because it seems that there is also acknowledgement coming in from bodies like the UN. There is a lot of concern for a peaceful and stable Afghanistan. There is evidence of the terror networks that exist. And the fact of the matter is that there still is no written guarantees coming in from the Afghan Taliban regime. What do you think can possibly change when we sit again on the 6th of November?
Well, in continuation with Dr. Maria, she has already pointed out the basic ingredients of this negotiation and the trouble which Pakistan and the terrorism which Pakistan is facing from the Afghan soil. And it's not only the recognition now, as you referred to UN report or UN report of the report here. Basically, very recently, there was some Moscow framework also. There's a Moscow dialogue also where not only Pakistan, but even Russia, China, and Iran had said that there are about 33 terrorist organizations which are housing in Afghanistan, which are very logistically, administratively, technically, and monetarily supported by the Afghan government. They have provided spaces to those organizations to operate from Afghanistan to the Pakistan soil. And there is, before the report you are mentioning, there was another report of UN Monitoring and Analytical Team report, which also said that there is a report which was compiled by the Inspector General of Reconstruction, who is not a Pakistani representative, who is an American representative, in which he pointed out there are 7 new training centers which has been established by the Afghanis in Afghan government. I said it's not a government, it's not a regime. It is a nexus of criminal and high-grade criminals and the religious extremists who are forcefully sitting on the seat of power in Afghanistan. They even do not care for their own people. Based on that, based on the reports, and then whatever happened on the Duran line between Afghan and Pakistan forces, remember one thing must be kept in mind that Pakistan security forces had been deployed on the western border for the last 20 years. From the upper Koram and go down to the Spin Boldak and all those areas of Angur Adda and all these agencies. Pakistani forces remained deployed there, but not even a single time Pakistani forces had fired onto the Afghanistan or crossed the international border to undertake any operation. That indicates the resolve of Pakistan to solve the matter peacefully. And that is what is indicated when we went into the initial negotiation at Doha. And we said that we want to settle the matter where the ceasefire was agreed upon between the two parties. And there was another round which happened, and then it was curtailed in between, that restarted. And after that, the four clauses which have come in, and as Dr. Maria said, that at least one thing has been accepted, that there is Afghan even representative have accepted this fact that there is a terrorism which is being originated from Afghanistan, which is being sponsored from Afghanistan and lodged onto the Pakistan soil. You see, if you see the conduct of the governments, or if you call it a government, at the Afghan side, the day before yesterday, there was a tashkil which is coming into Pakistan and which was targeted by Pakistan security forces. And when once they sighted the bodies, they found out three Afghan nationals who were involved in that, and they were carrying the identity card also of those of their the Afghan government, and their name was, one was Muhammad Zaman, one was Ziaur Rahman, one belonged to the Wardak, one belonged to Paktia, and another there was another man by the name of Azizur Rahman who was an employee of Afghan Ministry of Defense. And after identification was there, when their bodies were like taken to Kharlachi crossing, and Pakistan security official asked Afghan government to take it or take over Afghan representative. They refused to take over the bodies. So this one incident, which is a practical incident, can totally take the character of those people who are sitting in Afghanistan and call themselves a government. So it means that they have a very rigid view. They do not see the world from the angle of the peace. They only see the world from the angle of terrorism, which they have been doing for the last 20-25 years. Now, at this point of time, since Turkey and Qatar are there as guarantor, and it has also been said that the fine will be imposed through the violators. So I further see that once they have accepted that there is a terrorism which is coming from Afghan side to Pakistan, so in the next negotiation round, there will be some mechanism which will be created, and out of that mechanism we can expect that the activities of those terrorist organizations who are sitting in who are present in Afghanistan, their activities will likely to be curtailed, because until unless Pakistan has got one point agenda, that curtail the control and curtail and disconnect the activities of those terrorist organizations which are housed, supported, financed technically and monetarily by the Afghan government. Now, one factor which I foresee which will spoil all these things is the Indian factor. Indian factor with Afghanistan, and if you see the time framework, if you see timing when these negotiations are going on, these timings for Pakistan are very sensitive, as there's a massing of troops across the eastern border. 30,000 troops have been called on the name of exercises. And today I was hearing to a speech of one of the general officer commanding of Indian infantry division, in which he said that we would like to attack at night and we will attack Pakistan at night. You see, they have been firing on the line of control also in Neelam Valley, in Lipa Valley. So Pakistan, basically, I feel that even this agreement which has been agreed today on the context of ceasefire, that ceasefire is going to continue and there's going to be another round of negotiation. I think because of the timing and because of the Indian factor, whether it is related to Afghanistan or whether it is related to the building of troops across Rahim Yar Khan or across Run of Kutch sector or across Sir Creek sector, for this status to continue is an important phase for Pakistan, and I foresee that when the next round of negotiation comes in and some mechanism is created, if not totally, I don't foresee totally Afghan Taliban are going to withdraw from supporting the Fitna al-Khawarij or Fitna al-Wasta, but there's going to, I personally feel some check is going to be created which gradually may curtail the activities of those people, those organizations which are operating
Absolutely.
from
Yeah,
Pakistan.
Ghazanfar, I also want your take on. I understand this mechanism in principle has been agreed, but a lot is still on the table as to how exactly will it function and what will be the key aspects of this mechanism. But it's important to note also that we're still hearing a lot of rhetoric coming in from the Afghan side that is not helping the negotiating process. There is, of course, claims going about as to how the individuals involved in the terror organizations such as the TTP are actually refugees from Pakistan, which the defense minister has claimed is absurd and does not really make any sense. And so I want your take on when we're hearing these statements coming in. Earlier, you are aware there were statements made with regards to the Durand line as well. So how exactly are we going to move ahead with a side that keeps on making claims that have no basis?
Actually, you see, Durand line is not a point of contest. It's a political statement which is being constantly being given, and these statements had been coming from Afghanistan not from today, but right after 1947, when initially the Afghan delegate had not given the vote in favor of Pakistan. Though he did that after in the October meeting. So those statements had been coming, but as far as the Durand line is concerned, you know that sir, the Durand came on the request of Amir Rahman, and then he demarcated the boundary. So that when the boundary was demarcated, it is existing in I mean all the established maps of the world. It is standing in the Britannica.com. It is standing on the Google. Everywhere you go, every you see the historical map, the geographical map, the geographical layout, you will find the boundary existing as the oral line. So that is not. I personally feel that's a political statement which will keep on coming on. It came from Karzai also. Came from Ashraf Ghani also. It came from Dawood also. It came from Tarkai also. Pakistan has to stand on its foot, and Pakistan is standing on its foot, and the world is recognizing. Today, the world recognizes one thing, that Pakistan has been making a lot of endeavors. Pakistan has been trying to establish peace into the region, and that peace is because of the Pakistan consistent policy of peace, that they have not been bombing in Afghanistan, they have not been taking any offensive activities against those targets which are harming Pakistan from Afghanistan. Durand line will stay as it is. Afghan, whatever Afghan will keep on saying, because you see, what is the vision of Afghan leadership? Their leader, supreme leader, lives in a room of 6 by 6 and doesn't come out. He doesn't meet anybody. So can his vision be more than a 6 by 6 feet room? He does not know what is happening in the world. He even does not know what is happening in the religion. If you do not see it from the religious point of view, if you do not see from the legal point of view, if you do not see a thing from the world point of view, how can you expect that the statement coming from such
Absolutely.
terrorists can be forthcoming, can be expected by the world? It cannot be
Yes.
accepted by the world. It is not expected. It's not accepted by the by Pakistan government also. But what
Right,
we have to
absolutely.
see,
Absolutely. This is very important because this is a stance that we want the international community to also understand and recognize. Thank you very much, Brigadier Ghazanfar, for joining us and being a part of the newsroom. Dr. Mari, I'll come back to you. This is, of course, an important aspect, and Brigadier Saab was also mentioning the very integral nexus that exists between the Afghan Taliban regime and India, and this is something that Pakistan has put forward with evidence. But I want your take as to how then the international community is going to take a look at this. We've seen mediators such as Turkey and Qatar, of course, step in. There's also, of course, the involvement of Russia, given the fact that they hosted a moot recently. They've recognized the Afghan Taliban regime. But how are these countries going to take a look at the regional dynamics that are at play here and the proxy war that is being fought?
I think that's an excellent question, but I think there are two things which we need to be very clear about. First and foremost, the Afghan government's current peril is not just about what relationships with they're maintaining with Pakistan. It's also about these 33 other terror groups which are still operating in Afghanistan and are being aided and abetted by different people who are, having positions of influence in Afghan government. Now, this said, the UN Security Council Resolution 1373, which clearly stated that Afghan territory should not be used for terrorism, is one of the primary document which allows the use of force under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter to be used against Afghanistan or any other terror groups which are operating out of Afghanistan, if it continues to remain a practice, because it's a living UN Security Council resolution. Along with that comes the 1267 resolution, UN Security Council resolution, which says that any country which finances terrorism is also going to be held accountable, and Chapter 7, use of force, can also be used against them. Now, this is where India's aiding and abetting terrorism will be held accountable. We all know about FATF, brilliant, but one of the primary documents from which FATF draws its strength is the UN Security Council Resolution 1267, which is actually incidentally only about Afghanistan. So this means that it is the first time what the Afghan Taliban had agreed in the Doha process, the world has already shared its legal opinion on it. It's in a UN-based framework approach on it. So it's not a question that Pakistan has to prove something. We are the only ones which are vindicating that whatever was said in 2001, whatever was admitted in 2021, needs to be now held accountable in 2025. And what's also important is this: what is going to be the regional answer? All the countries in the region want to have better relations with Afghanistan. They want to have better relations with the people of Afghanistan. They want to have economic relations, but not at the cost of terrorism. The SCO is very clear on that. They will not allow for that. Russia is very clear. They don't want terrorism to become a major element of diplomacy, state politics between Afghan government and Russia. Neither does China, neither does Iran, and neither does Pakistan. And that just basically means that all regional countries, which could provide any kind of lifeline to Afghanistan's regime or Afghanistan, stand united on that. They're against terrorism, and so does the international community. The problem had been that everybody was very hesitant because nobody wants to fight another war in Afghanistan. Now, here is where the difference is. Pakistan is not going to Afghanistan. We are not fighting a war in Afghanistan. We are fighting for Pakistan in Pakistan so that Pakistan's borders remain stable. So this is where the difference in the differentiation lies. In the case, alternatively, if India comes in, they have to fly over Pakistan. They will be in a similar position as United States, Russia, and others were. The question is, do they want to support a Kabul, which is going to act against the people of Afghanistan? Because the people of Afghanistan, for sure, don't want another war. For sure, they don't want to be put in this spotlight where hostilities become mainstream. So this is what we have seen. We have seen Badakhshan. There's already, some infighting going on. We've already seen amateur Masood fighters claiming that, they will, in the case of any situation, they will be ready to take over. So likewise, there are many other armed groups in Afghanistan. So it's not in the interest of the Afghan government to shake the apple cart, to continue to support terrorism for an extra regional player, and to believe that the region will be okay about it. The region is not okay about it, whether in Moscow format, whether in China-Pakistan conversations, or for that matter, under the UN Security Council frameworks. So that is what the conversation is about. And the last straw was between those countries which supported the last conversation. That means Qatar, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan. And now all four of them have come together, again, trying to have a conversation with them that they need to rethink their policy, rethink how they're going to negotiate with Pakistan on this single point agenda. The terrorism has to stop.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Mariam, my last question would be, when we take a look at the way that the Afghan Taliban regime has still, of course, not fulfilled its reassurances, given in the past, we have the UN Special Rapporteur also speaking about this recently, giving a report to the General Assembly saying that it is a matter of international concern that consolidating the Afghan Taliban regime is going to take away the possibility of that happening even more, and the fact that they have contributed to the current status of Afghanistan, given the fact that it's different ethnicities have not been included. There's no real concept of freedom for women there, for their rights to education and to the workplace. And so given these matters are very, very integral to the international community as well, in the larger context of the Afghan Taliban regime's future, how do you think that the United Nations and different countries around the world are going to be changing their stance? Because, of course, the recognition is only there by one country, but there have been many others that have started interacting with the Afghan Taliban regime quite seriously, of course, including, not the least, India. So given this circumstance, how do you think the international community is viewing Afghanistan at the moment? Is it not pushing it away from the possibility of ever fulfilling its assurances?
I think it's a catch-22 for the Afghan government. The catch-22 is that if they want to remain in power, they will have to take concrete action against terrorism. They will have to show flexibility in terms of the interim Afghan government's arrangements and commitments they made towards the political dispensation. And most importantly, they'll have to give an economic future to the people of Afghanistan. You cannot continue to hold the people of Afghanistan hostage to a regime which is not actually interested in taking the people of Afghanistan forward, but actually wants them hostage to acts of violence and wars after wars. War economies are great, but war economies are not permanent. But if they're permanent, then there comes another reality to war economies. And that is that war economies also see change of command. They also see infighting between factions. They also see countries going into total chaos. So this is not something which the people of Afghanistan deserve. This is not something which this region deserves. And we are also sure that this is not something which the Afghan regime would like to see itself 2 years from now. So in this case, they have to really seriously rethink. Do they really want to now support an extra-regional player for terrorism and for helping them win a lost war, which they lost between India and Pakistan and Darial and Marsus, or whether they want a new thinking on Afghanistan, which is going to put them, their regime, seriously on the map, or their regime as a terrorist sponsor, group of actors. Now, this is a choice. And the world has spoken very clearly. They will have to be more inclusive about the women. They will have to be more inclusive with regards to coming up with much more responsive ideas. And last but not least, they will have to take a very serious decision when it comes to actually supporting terrorism, supporting extra-regional actors for carrying out acts of terrorism in Afghanistan.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Maya Sultan, for being a part of the newsroom today. We're now going to be taking a look at our next story that focuses on the cancelled planned meeting between the US President and the Russian leader. It is important to note, of course, that this is something that came as a result of a phone call between the two leaders when the Ukrainian leader was scheduled to meet with Mr. Trump at the White House, reportedly to ask for Tomahawk missiles, which the US President has not given to the Ukrainian side. But we've seen that the meeting that was earlier scheduled to be held in Budapest is now cancelled, with a rhetoric coming in from the US side citing the fact that Moscow wasn't serious, or that there hasn't been a lot of effort that has been put in from the Russian side, and there has been increased demands coming in, and it seems that there is a different understanding between the two leaders as to how exactly the current situation is and what it is that they're going to be doing moving forward. So far the meeting is cancelled, but what effect does that have on the US-Russia relation and of course the Ukraine-Russian conflict? For that, we've been joined by Dr. Shazia Anwar Cheema, a foreign affairs expert, and we'll speak to her more about the current situation. Ms. Shazia, I want your take on how you think the current situation is at the moment, and where do you see the two leaders currently? The rhetoric, of course, is very, very strong, given the fact that this was earlier scheduled in a positive note but is no longer happening. But does that mean any real significant friction between the two?
Misunderstanding between the two, because Putin has his clear articulation about the root causes of the problem. So he and his cabinet is very clear from the beginning that what they want from any negotiation. So they just need de-radicalization, de-Nazification of the Ukraine, and they just do not want a temporary ceasefire. And the misunderstanding at the part of the Trump is that Trump is divided between two advisors, his special envoy Witkoff and General Kellogg. So sometimes Witkoff wins in convincing Trump And in the result, we can see the summit between two in Alaska. And sometimes General Kellogg wins in convincing Trump, and we see that then this meeting has been cancelled. So General Kellogg is basically from the globalist neocons camp, and he just doesn't want to stop this war with the help of Europeans. And he's getting information from Medvedev and Zelensky, and they are portraying a very rosy picture. And in this process, what Trump practically has done, he has thrown Erdogan under the bus because he was uh, he was a strong ally, European ally of Trump, and he needed that summit right now because before his election, it was a good optics for him. But Trump is divided between the two advisory committee, if we can call them so. And on the other hand, Russian side is very clear. I mean, they are winning the war, and they just they just have their goals, and they are achieving them bit by bit, mile by mile. And the consequences is like now, from today's report, Pokrovsk and Zaporozhye region, they are encircled, and around 50,000 each in the area, the soldiers are encircled too. And Putin has today announced that any Western or any journalist is welcome, and he's eager to stop the war for 24 hours to show the actual real picture on the ground. And that is the problem because the General Kellogg and his group, they don't want this to stop this proxy war. And Europeans have such a deep hole that they don't have any way to get out of it because their entire narrative, their entire rhetoric is based on that they are winning the war, and they will be able to destroy the Russian economy, and it is going to be easy to control Russia. They are not saying it openly that they want to balkanize Russia, but the reality is that Russia is winning on the ground, and it's bad for Ukrainians, and it's bad for the Ukrainian soldiers who are fighting on ground. But Russia is the problem with the Russia is that Russia do not want to cross the Dnieper because after the Dnieper they are hyper radical anti-Russian sentiments, and they don't want to control that. And in my opinion, that part of the Europe is going to be Afghanistan of Europe because the fractions like as of Brigade and the reminiscence of Banderites, Stefan Bandera, they are not even control of the Kiev regime. So the situation is very chaotic here. And just like Gaza, you can replicate this situation on Gaza. Western media is not telling us what's happening on the ground, and our entire narrative is controlled by the Western media. Even people like you and me, we cannot get ourselves immune from that. We are also consuming that. We have to dig so deep to get the real picture, and that real picture is always on the surface. But we have to peel the layers of that, and that's what I'm feeling bad for Erdogan and also for Ukrainians. But Zelensky has no mood of stopping this because his life is in danger. First of all, because he has been told by the Bangarites and the Azovs that he cannot sit on any ceasefire table. But let's see what happens.
But Dr. Shazia, where do you think the Kremlin stands on this situation, given the fact that we have seen what Russia's stance is with regards to Ukraine, and of course the conflict is still continuing as well. But what it is that you think Russia is seeking from the United States? Can the United States provide that to Russia? And what does that mean for the United States, given the fact that their president is showing and moving towards actions around the international community, being a flag bearer of peace? So given that situation, do you think that the US can really make an effort to ending the Ukraine-Russia conflict as per what Russia hopes to get from the United States?
Sometimes I get this feeling that Trump really wants peace, and he he has this thing in himself that he wants peace. He doesn't like this forever wars. But he's surrounded by the same deep state. He's surrounded by, he has everybody around him are the same neocons. They are from the same deep state. And he's also surrounded by the Europeans, and Europeans are not letting him decide anything. They are giving him wrong information. They are giving him wrong intel. Even Zelensky and Medvedev, they are giving wrong intel. So this is that is the basic problem, because if he is not, he himself is not putting an extra mile to get the real picture. So the information he's getting, he's deciding on that information, and that information is fundamentally flawed. On the other hand, Russia has its clear stance. We can agree or disagree with that. They have started this war because the Ukrainians, especially after the Euromaidan coup, an actor, like not actor in an actor sense, but a proxy actor, a puppet was planted according to their narrative. And the first thing what he did was he banned Russian language and the Russian canonical church, and the people of the Russian spoken areas of the Ukraine, they started retaliation. And there was a civil war, and nobody was reporting that. And Russia reacted to that civil war on the demand of the people of those regions. And then that's how this war started. And that is the main objective of the Russia, to safeguard the Russian language, Russian culture, Russian church. And they have to do that. And according to them, it's existential for them. They are not fighting it just for the sake of fighting. Their only issue is that they need a buffer zone between Europe and themselves. So they do not want NATO on their borders, and they do not want a hostile government based on NATO forces, funded by the Western countries, and supported by the NATO, trained by the NATO. So I find logic in their stance. They do not want war. They want to stop. They want to stop on the battle contact line even now. That's what Putin has said repeatedly. But the problem is that now, after this time, it's very difficult for the Europeans who have started this proxy war with the help of Zelensky to stop it. What they have nothing to sell to their audience, their public. What they are going to say to their public, that they have lost it again, and there was no purpose behind that, and it was useless, and millions of Ukrainians just died because of the visceral loath for Russia, and that was the only logic of that. So it's very difficult for them now to get out of it. And
Absolutely.
as
Thank
they
you
are
very much, Dr. Shazia, for joining us in the newsroom and sharing your views. It is important, of course, to see what the current situation is with regards to the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. And there was hope, of course, for the two leaders from the United States and Russia to meet and hopefully move towards a resolution of this current situation. But it seems that that meeting has been cancelled for now. It remains to be seen how this will be evolving. But the kind of sentiment, at least, that we're hearing does not seem to point in that direction. We're now going to be taking a look at a last story that focuses on what has happened with Andrew Mountbatten, who is the younger brother of King Charles III, and he's going to be stripped of his title as prince, and this is what the Buckingham Palace is saying, and it's an extraordinary move, and it has been done so in relation to his ties with the convicted sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein. Thank you very much, Mr. Hamid Khan, for joining us and speaking to us with regards to this story. I welcome you to the newsroom. Mr. Khan, there is, of course, a lot of concern as to how big or substantial this particular move is, and what does that imply in terms of the credibility or the trust or the kind of image or persona, at least, that the royalty carries in the Buckingham Palace. I want your take on how do you see this particular step that is being taken, and where is it the public standing in terms of their sentiment to this?
Thank you very much, Sana. I think it's a very significant event today, and it is very clear that the King Charles is very much clear that he does not want any more damage to the credibility of monarchy and the royal family, and he is very much understand, and he's very upset about the revelations of latest, on in terms in relation to Andrew's activities and illegitimate and what he did. And obviously, it has been proven that what he was doing is against all the ethics and morals of not only a normal citizen, but especially being a part of the royal family, being the prince, and being having so many titles from the queen already. So I think scrapping out his title of prince is a very right decision. It is being appreciated by the Britain, all the people in British, and they believe that it should have been done much earlier. But because he was always in a denial of all the accusations or all the accusations of sexual assault and all these activities against him. So he did drag it, but eventually there was so much pressure on the royal family, particularly on King Charles, that if he will not take the action, then what people will think about it? Because British society is very much based on justice and fair trial, and especially when it comes to the royal family and monarchy, they always look up to them, and they do not expect such kind of I would say explicit behavior from anyone from the royal family. And we have seen that it has obviously it's a big news for the people across the world, including in Britain. But it is a clear message that King Charles believes that he will not, give any favor, or he will not show any, softness towards Andrew,
Absolutely,
who
and I
was
understand that,
formerly.
Mr. Khan, but I want your take, as you're mentioning, of course, that this step was really, really important to save the credibility of the Buckingham Palace and the royalties involved. But there has been a lot of damage to the reputation. So I want your take in terms of whether or not this step will really be seen as a measure that will truly counter all of the damage that has already been done. Will there be face saving? Will there be damage control? Will the public stop speaking about it or laud this particular step that is being taken? Is this enough to stop the people from commenting on what has happened?
Very honest, there's a large number of people who believe this is not enough. There are a large number of people who believe that he should go behind the bars as well, and he should face the justice and consequences what he did. So, I mean, on one end, that is the perspective and that is the narrative of a certain people in a large number of people in UK. On the other hand, yes, it is a good step to recover the credibility, to restore the trust. But at the same time, I mean, since Queen is passed away, and even prior to that, for the last 2 3 decades, eventually. I would say that the monarchy and the is not very much important, and there are a lot of questions about their expenses, about their royalty, about their lifestyle, because with the modern world where people believe in equal rights and democracy, and they don't believe much more in such kind of traditions as well. So, I mean, still, there is a large number of people where they have the traditional thinking, where they have orthodox ideologies, where they believe that this is like a very great symbolic thing of Britain, and it should carry on with its all glory. But I will see that, I mean, as you know, at Prince Diana's time, there was a lot of damage. Princess Diana's time, there was a lot of damage to the royalty and their, family. And then later on, we had seen in the cases of, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's time. Again, there was a lot of things. There was a lot of things which was against the traditional traditions of royal family, such as he married to the lady who was already divorced, and she has multiple relations and a lot of other things. So that's why, and then we have seen how Prince Harry distanced himself from the royalty, and he moved, to United States and then Canada. So it is all, we have seen how much, I would say, already damage is being done on the family. But it is a great attempt from the Prince Charles. I will say that, sorry, King Charles the third, that it is his attempt to recover and restore the credibility and an effort. He has indicated that if he will have no interference, if there will be any further proceedings against his brother Andrew, and he will not be create any hindrance for that justice or anything if it goes towards that.
Yes, that will be really important to see as we move towards fair play, as you were pointing out. Thank you very much, Mr. Hamid Khan, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. There is, of course, a lot of ruckus as to going on, but there is a welcome step. But of course, many are demanding more to happen in terms of accountability. But at least this is a step in the right direction. That's all that we have from the newsroom today. We'll now see you tomorrow.